That's never good.
Yeah, it's not great. I'm gonna push this button, and if
That's why I never push that button.
We are live.
yeah, we're live.
It says we're live on my phone, so we must be live. Welcome, everyone, again. It's Monday afternoon during our 65th legislative session, and that means you get to see Nick and me. I'm Tom Gerhardt, Director of Public Affairs for North Dakota United. Nick Archuleta, President of North Dakota United. And a lot of topics that I've jotted down here, Nick, that we want to tell all of you about, from a little bit from last week and then a little bit about what's happening this week. But
Great idea.
bright and early, you were up testifying on two bills this morning in front of the Senate Education Committee. Let's start with Senate Bill 2250, which deals with early childhood education. Senator Nicole Poolman introduced the bill and talked about increasing access and targeting some low-income kids. We're in support of this bill.
Yeah, we are. We're have been in support of early childhood education as an organization for years and years. Up until last session, North Dakota was one of, I think, 4 states that didn't provide any early childhood education monies. So we climbed that hurdle, and then we found that there wasn't enough access. So part of the issue that Nicole Poolman wanted to address was that whole issue that there weren't enough low-income kids that were able to access the program. And it was primarily for them that the program came into being. So what happened was that it provides more money. The amendments that she offered to the law will provide actually more money for school districts to encourage them to initiate their own early childhood education program. And by doing so, that will open it up to even more students.
And you testified, a number of other organizations testified on behalf of this bill too. Not any opposition?
No, there was no opposition because this is a darn good idea. It flew through the legislature last year, or last session I should say, and I fully expect that this is going to have a positive impact as well.
All right, before we move on, we wanted to pass along, if you have any questions, please type them into Facebook, and Kelly Hagan will get them to Nick and me, or else I'll try and keep an eye on my phone here to see if you've sent any questions. And also, please like us on Facebook at Facebook North Dakota United. We're also on Twitter at NDU United, and our website ndunited.org.
That sounds a little needy. Please
Yeah.
like us.
please.
I think we'll be
We're not begging yet.
No.
But quick break. Senate Bill 2243. It comes up, and this is a loan forgiveness bill for teachers meant to recruit and retain teachers in tough geographic areas and in subject areas where we're in need of teachers. And you passed along, I thought, an interesting statistic in your testimony from the National Education Association saying in the next decade we're going to need 2 million teachers nationwide. So this is a big deal, a big issue.
Oh, yeah, and it's a big issue everywhere you go. I mean, when I go to Washington and we talk about issues facing educators and public school systems across the country, among the very top are how are we going to get enough teachers into these areas where we need to put teachers so that the students have a well-qualified, well-trained teacher in front of them. In North Dakota, we have seen this for quite some time, that around August, you have like the beginning of August, there are still 400 openings. Well, by the end of August, that dwindles down to about 2. And that's I think it was like 204 openings is what we ended up with this particular session. That doesn't mean to say that 204 classes were empty and students didn't have anything, any teacher in front of them. School districts have dealt with that in different ways by giving overload contracts to teachers, retired teachers coming back into the profession. Of course, there are different licenses that ESPB has granted that helps to mitigate the teacher shortage. But those are just Band-Aids on a pretty bad wound. So what this bill that was introduced this morning dealt with was the notion that we are actually going to encourage people to go to these communities that have historically had trouble retaining teachers and attracting teachers to their communities. This bill, I think, is going to go a long way. Will it work? We won't really know, of course, until until we see this in action for a couple of years. But we fully expect that it's going to have some impact.
And not to cut you off there, Nick,
That's
but
fine.
you mentioned some of these tough geographic areas, and you joked about, hey, there's not a Starbucks there, maybe not the social network that these young people want, but those are really legitimate things, the culture, the network of
Yeah.
people. So this money is some decent money in terms of the loan forgiveness. If you meet the criteria, you can get $4,500 the first and second year, and $6,000 the third year. So there's some more serious money attached to this than ideas that have been brought up in the past.
Exactly, and I was only half joking. I mean, if you go to a community like Wishick, which is a terrific community, they have a wonderful school there, and it's the best sausage
Guess,
in America.
I was going to
But,
say.
miles from the nearest McDonald's. To go to a movie is quite a trek. You either go to Aberdeen or to Jamestown. What we hope to do with this is to encourage people, young people, to move to these communities and make that transition a little bit more palatable for them. One thing here is that we are graduating enough people with education degrees to meet the need. However, they're not willing to go to places where they're needed. They like the idea of working in the cities where they have all these things, these conveniences, the social interaction that they crave. So they're not willing to take jobs in places, particularly if they don't pay well. One of the things that I mentioned in my testimony was that as a means of getting to a solution to this problem, that we just pay teachers like professional athletes. That didn't go very far. So this all came out of the task force that we were on. Both our executive director, Chad Oban, and myself served on that task force. We had all kinds of interested parties, from the school boards to NDCEL to parent groups to community leaders in higher ed. And this is what we came up with, and I was happy to testify in favor of it today.
All right, so both those bills, 2250 and 2243 in the Senate, supported by North Dakota United. We do have a question from Jerry that we'll get to about legislative form in Grand Forks over the weekend.
Sure.
and talking about health care for public employees. But let's continue along the line of bills now this week. House Bill 1382, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Rick Becker's bill, an education savings account, call it a voucher. This would take public tax dollars and put it into non-public students.
Well, exactly, non-public institutions. This is a voucher bill. There's just no other way around it. This is a bill that was written by the American Legislative Exchange Council and put into place in North Dakota. There are 5 states that have these, and they are, let's see if I can name them. Nevada has them, Tennessee has them, and a couple of others, 3 others. But those states, when you take a look at the satisfaction that their residents in those states have with their public school system, they are way down there. Nevada's at 42%. A couple of others are in the 50s or low 50s. In North Dakota, the satisfaction, those citizens that rate our schools as good to excellent, is 89%. This bill does nothing at all to enhance public education in the state. In fact, it will harm public education because it takes that money from the formula and gives to that student's family to use it either to go to a private school or parochial school or even to be homeschooled. That's just not fair. We cannot use public monies for private schools. It's a well-established tradition in this state, and we will testify against it very, very hard.
Yeah, stay tuned for more updates. Again, House Bill 1382, the voucher bill, tomorrow at 10 a.m. being introduced, and we'll be following that very closely. As you may have read in our legislative update last Friday, there are a number of gun bills that are being introduced this week, 9 in fact. And Thursday, House Bill 1278 is a bill that deals with guns in government buildings. Nick, thoughts on that?
Well, I will just share with you the thoughts that our public employees who work in these government buildings have shared with me. They don't want them. Neither do the people who work very hard to keep us safe in law enforcement. If law enforcement is ever called into a building that has an active shooter, and if everybody in there has a gun, they don't know who the good guy is. And moreover, it is not as likely as you might think a good guy with a gun is going to do the right thing when he pulls that gun. It's a highly stressful situation. Most of these people were not trained to accept the fact that they may take a life. Public employees certainly aren't trained to do that, and they would just as soon have no guns except carried by those people in law enforcement in the government buildings.
Again, that is House Bill 1278, and on Friday, House Bill 1310 is a gun bill that deals with guns in schools.
Yeah, and this bill keeps coming back session after session too. And we know, because we've spoken with our members about it, that they don't want guns in schools for many of the same reasons that we just talked about with public employees. There is some favorability of having resource officers, because those people are trained. They're trained law enforcement. Teachers and other private citizens aren't trained to do what law enforcement does. And it is really unfair to ask them to assume those roles without the proper training. So we are not in favor of that. Our members are not in favor of that. We know that because we polled this issue, and it is not even close, to be quite honest with you. So we will vigorously oppose this legislation as well.
All right, we'll keep you up to date on all of those bills. Interestingly enough, last Monday, shortly after we got done with our Facebook Live, we got an email from the governor's office, and Governor Burgum had released his budget proposal. And there's been a lot of talk about that. You jumped into action immediately, especially on a couple of topics, and that ties back into a question that we did get from Jerry, who was at a legislative forum in Grand Forks Saturday, and lets us know that those in attendance were not receptive to the changes to health care for public employees. And what Governor Burgum was asking is that public employees pay 5% of their health insurance premium, which I think for a family was $72 a month, and for a single maybe $30 per month. You interviewed with multiple media outlets here to get the word out quickly that we're not in favor of that.
Oh no, we are not in favor of that, and here's why. When you're looking at an agency budget, and then the governor's budget that's coming out with no raises for next year, no raises for the year after that, and then you have to take you pay 5% of your health care, you will actually be earning less in 3 years than you're earning now. That's not how the system is designed to work, and it won't work. I spoke with an agency head after we both testified on two separate bills in front of the same committee. And he stopped me afterwards and he whispered to me, he said, "Nick, I have a woman working in my department. She is a widow. She's the only breadwinner that impacts her life financially. And she said, last year I was able to give her a pay raise. This year she will be making 2.4% less, not counting the 1% increase that's going to be rolled in per his retirement." So these aren't numbers, and these aren't jobs, these are people. And we have to kind of keep that in mind, we better keep that in mind. Otherwise, we will not be able to retain the great quality higher ed faculty and public employees that we have now, let alone recruit them to come work for the state. So that's where we are on this issue, and we hope to have more discussions with the governor on this issue. We've already been speaking with folks in the legislature, legislative leadership, and I think we are finally starting to make some headway, but we will keep you posted on this.
Yeah, we don't know where this is headed. Today's the final day for the Senate for bills to be introduced. The House, their deadline was last week. We haven't seen a bill yet dealing with this. We feel, okay about the conversations we've had.
Right.
Not a lot of an appetite for this among the lawmakers that we've talked to, but as they say, anything can happen, right? So
exactly.
Keep the pressure on.
And then, in fact, that was the word we got. I met twice last week with Senator Wardner, the Senate Majority Leader, and it was true. He said there wasn't much of an appetite for this, particularly because public employees won't be getting a raise. And but what you said is exactly right, Tom. Today's the last day that senators can put bills in, but anything can come up when the bill gets to conference committee. So we are not taking our eye off that ball. We are studying this and following this very hard and making sure that our preference on this matter is heard and understood.
Let's talk about a couple other things in Governor Burgum's proposal, and that is $31 million less for higher ed. And higher ed seems to be in the crosshairs.
Yeah, and that is just vexing to me. When you look at the North Dakota university system and look at the campuses around this state, we have two awesome, and I mean world-class, research universities in our state, where there's enormous, important research going on every single day. The regional universities, they feature some of the best teaching and learning in the United States of America. So when we see another budget cut coming to higher education, that causes us real concern. First of all, we need to attract people to our colleges and universities in North Dakota. We don't graduate enough people to make sure that our university classrooms are full. We need people from out of state wanting to come here. We're in competition, not just regionally, not just between South Dakota, Minnesota, Montana. We are in a global competition for students and for high quality faculty. So when that doesn't work. That just is not what people are looking for when they're looking for a place to come do research or when they come to teach in our higher ed system. On Thursday, I'm going to go in front of the North Dakota State Board of Higher Education and make the case there for against them wanting to change their tenure policy, reducing it from 1 year to 90 days. We've had higher ed commenting on that. Some very colorful phrases have been used, but overwhelmingly they are totally against this. I mean, what is tenure worth? And we better get that right too.
We should mention too that we're getting a message from the Fargo Education Association, and they're watching the live broadcast during their meetings. So
wow.
Greetings to Fargo.
Greetings, David, and everyone.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate that. Karen sends us a message. The governor's budget will not require lawmakers to pay 5% of their health insurance. That's a question that she poses to us. I can say that I was in Senate Appropriations today and asked that very question. That came to our attention, and I've been assured that that is not the case, that everybody will be on the same level playing field. So that is a rumor that's circulating. We asked that question very quickly, and the answer that we've been given is lawmakers will, if under Governor Burgum's proposal, to be very clear, would pay that 5% as public employees would as well.
Exactly. There isn't a carve-out for anybody. It's the plan, and everybody follows the plan, which is one of the things I think that would help save it, because legislators don't want to pay any more for their health insurance either, and they shouldn't, and neither should public employees.
Well, thanks, Karen, for that question, and again to the Fargo Education Association for watching today from your meeting. One last nugget from Governor Burgum's budget proposal. Governor Dalrymple had put in 1% for raises for public employees in year 2 of the biennium, and he'd also put in a 1% increase in the per pupil payments K through 12. Governor Burgum has taken that away from the formula as well.
Yeah, and then that's disappointing. Frankly, in these tough budgetary times, we don't necessarily need to worry about big ending balances. We should be looking at keeping the people that we've got here. North Dakota United almost single-handedly passed Measure 2, which allowed there to be an extra $300 million available to be spent from the Foundation Aid Stabilization Fund. The governor's going to use about $200 million of that, and that's fine. That's why we opened it up. We should not, frankly, if we are going to be held harmless in this thing, K-12 funding needs to be maintained at the present level, if not increased, and we are not finished with this discussion yet. It is my opinion that we have not begun to discuss all of the options because they're not all on the table yet. And there's a long time. We're only entering week 4 of the legislature. There's a long time to get these things on the table and to get them discussed and look at other ways of enhancing revenue or different kinds of budget cuts that won't impact negatively K-12 education. And we will insist that we get a chance to discuss those.
If you're watching along on Facebook, Kelly Hagan is posting links for you that are really important. One link to send letters to your lawmakers about the governor's budget plan to let them know what you think, and that activism and advocacy does go a long way. There's another link to protect tenure in higher education, so you can help sign that petition as well. Just a couple of things that you can do, and links to contact your lawmakers on a number of issues, again, all here on our Facebook page. Betsy DeVos, the nominee for Secretary of Education, had her hearing last week. We've been talking about her, and I don't want to get your pulse quickening here, Nick, but I know just where do things stand right now in terms of her nomination?
I believe she has a vote in front of the full Senate coming up on the 30th of January?
30th, yeah, I think so.
So we'll find out. Betsy DeVos has no business at all being the Secretary of Education. She has never attended public school. She's never sent her kids to public school. Her only interaction with public school is to ruin public schools. She is probably the least qualified person ever nominated for any cabinet job in any administration ever. So how do I really feel? Is that what you're wondering? I'm really feeling that she, President Trump was wrong to nominate her, and senators will be wrong to vote for her confirmation. There are a lot of qualified people out there. There are a ton of qualified Republicans out there that could do an outstanding job running the Department of Education. But you wouldn't have, for example, a Surgeon General who had nothing to do with medicine, you know, or a Surgeon General who ran around and encouraged kids to smoke. And smoke early, kids. You wouldn't have that. This is that version only for the Education Secretary. Yeah.
All right, we'll continue to follow that, and we'll breathe deeply.
We'll breathe deeply.
Big weekend for us coming up, and we have an advocacy conference taking place in Mandan, and a full agenda for Saturday, a number of things that people can do to chime in on all of these important topics. And there's still time to sign up on our website, but just a quick thought on the advocacy conference this weekend.
This is terrific. This is our third advocacy conference. It is typically the best attended event that North Dakota United does. And I really do, I'm very happy we started it and that it continues to this day. We are going to have some pre-bargaining sessions for folks. So bring the bargainers, bring your friends and neighbors, and come to this advocacy conference. There will be an awful lot to discuss related to the legislature, related to teaching and learning and public employees. So please make your plans now. Come on down. I think if you go to our www.ndunited.org website, you can get on there and register. There's one other thing I want to plug while I'm here.
Yes.
I don't know if you've done it yet. If you haven't, you should. You run over to that same www.ndunited.org and sign up to be a member advocate. We have over 200 people who have decided that they would like to help us lobby the legislature. And this Thursday, I believe at 6:30, Chad Oban and I will be available for a conference call. We'll shoot out that information on how to contact us, and then we will give you a little feel for what the legislature is doing, and then with specific asks about contacting your legislators in your districts. Some of them serve on some pretty important committees, and they listen to their voters. Believe me, they do. In fact, I heard one representative told me that he served with a guy who got one phone call on one issue and changed his vote because he goes to church with that guy and he didn't want to hear about it for the rest of his life. So don't think that doesn't matter. But please go there, sign up, and we'll be in touch this Thursday.
And united, our voices can make a difference. So we need your help. One last thing, Christy sends us a message. As the governor publicly supported Betsy DeVos's nomination, I don't recall hearing anything from Governor Bergen.
No, I don't believe so. Well, not that I have heard, but we do know that of all the cabinet nominees, this is one that a lot of folks are watching. If there's going to be one that's denied, it'll probably be this one. But we don't know that for a fact. We need people to contact our senators to make sure that they vote according to your wishes. I mean, we love education. If you're in the field of education watching this, or have gone to a public school, we need you to contact Senator Heitkamp and Senator Hoeven and make sure that they understand that you are watching this vote very, very carefully.
Yeah, well, thanks for your passion, Nick, on
Sure.
all these topics, and thanks for joining us here on another Facebook Live chat. President Nick Archuleta, I'm Tom Gerhardt, and wishing you a great rest of your Monday. And please see our Facebook feed for links for how you can get involved, and we'll answer any other questions that you post. And please share this video so we can get the word out. Have a great day.
Thank you.